We have waited 3 years for this Jujutsu Kaisen chapter. Gojo has finally returned. It looks like my theory that Gojo is either evil or will become evil or will somehow be used by Kenjaku in the future, or that he or his 6 eyes will turn against the heroes of the series in some other way may come true. Although the idea that Itadori could eat the prison realm is no longer possible, I still think the basic idea behind the theory will come true. Gojo will somehow turn against the sorcerer. One thing is for sure, the new Jujutsu Kaisen chapter has clearly pointed to the idea that something about Gojo might have changed. His behavior in this chapter is definitely very strange. If you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video. Let's go! The new chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen begins with the preparation of Gojo's unsealing. We are reminded once again that there is no normal time in the prison realm, or rather that time most likely runs differently than in the real world. This fact has already been mentioned several times, which is why we must assume that this aspect will become very important for the story in relation to Gojo, and why he was imprisoned in the first place, or at least one of the reasons why. And exactly therefore the time distortion in the prison realm must have had also a significant difference to the reality. What good is it if Gojo, for example, has spent only 1 month longer in it? I don't see the point. So it must be an extreme difference. Either no time has passed or a lot of time. Furthermore, I am convinced that this aspect must have a negative influence on the sorcerers. It has to have the certain plot twist, maybe even with a shock moment. So in my opinion, this is only possible if Gojo has spent many years in the prison realm, as indicated in the new chapter. This opens up a lot more possibilities for the consequences that Gojo might have carried. It was mentioned that even 100 years could have passed. With this, the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen has already set a reference value which we consider a realistic possibility. It would be quite disappointing if the number were now suddenly much lower than 100 years. Of course it's possible and it will necessarily be a bad thing, but the only way this could surprise us now is if this number exceeds our expectations. Which is why I think it could be more than 100 years. Definitely not impossible, since the 100 years mentioned in the chapter was just a random example. It could just as well have been 10,000 years. Neither we nor the people in Jujutsu Kaisen have even a hint of how time actually works inside the prison realm. So theoretically, absolutely any number is possible, which is pretty insane. In fact, I don't think anything about Gojo's release will have a positive impact. It looks very much like a bait. We are all relieved now, but this could all be a lie. Whether Gojo is the one who will directly cause bad things to happen, or if Kenjaku somehow manages to bring the 6 eyes into his control, in which, for example, he somehow modified the prison realm so that the truest sense was to turn Gojo's soul into a curse. This will allow Kenjaku to absorb Gojo using Geto's ability and thus become the strongest character with the strongest ability in the series, as it should be for the main villain if Kenjaku is the final villain. However, if Gojo is going to be the one who ends up being the main villain, the idea behind it is that he basically went crazy in the prison realm and now might be pursuing a pretty dangerous goal. We definitely know that he has planned to overthrow the current Jujutsu system and replace it with his own ideas. Basically, this is exactly the same goal that Kenjaku is pursuing, only they both have a different idea of what the future should look like. But let's not ignore the fact that throughout the series, Gojo has often shown that he also has a very strange way of seeing things. He's often very ruthless and is even willing to make certain sacrifices to achieve his goals. No matter if it's the death of civilians or possibly risking the downfall of the entire world. Gojo seems to see things a little differently than normal people, though he always manages to make it look like the elders are actually the bad guys. That definitely speaks for Gojo's manipulative nature, even though he might be right in some ways. There are many examples like that he doesn't understand the need for the curtains even if he follows the rules, simply because it's a rule, or why Itadori had to be sacrificed, and many other things. Of course, these are just little thoughts in his head that do more or less no harm as long as Gojo follows the rules. But if you give Gojo 100 years to think about all kinds of crazy ideas, I think this could become a problem. Besides, he also has the physical capabilities to make all his plans come true. Literally no one can stop him. So for him, such considerations are not a question of possibility, but a question of whether he wants to do certain things or not. This is dangerous. Even Angel is worried about Gojo's mental state. They even consider that he might go crazy and then they will have to deal with him. They literally describe him as a possible danger. And then it happens. They finally unseal Gojo. But before we see him free, the prison realm disappears. Whereupon Hana says that Gojo may have become evil, which may be why her light made him disappear. The fact that Gojo did not disappear but was actually freed suggests that Gojo is not evil, if we can believe Hana's words regarding how her light works. But we must also remember that not all people who do evil things are evil. That is why insanity is not considered evil. So I will not give much importance to what Hana said. But the fact that it again raised the idea of an evil Gojo could again be a red flag. Anyway, Gojo has finally returned and is face to face with Kenjaku. The only indication that Kenjaku did not have a secret plan with the prison realm beyond simply locking Gojo up is the fact that he made it look like he actually hid the prison realm, just in case Gojo was unsealed. But there could be a reason for that too. The fact that he considers the possibility that they might actually succeed in freeing him, without doing his best to prevent them from doing so, gives the impression that he has always known that this would happen, and consequently it might have been part of his plan all along. Or at least it was not so important to him that Gojo actually remained trapped. Much more important is the expression on Kenjaku's face. In my opinion, that's not the expression someone has when the biggest obstacle to their plan has just been freed. So again, a big hint that everything is going according to plan, and that this could also be part of his strategy, to maybe even get the 6 eyes. Then Sukuna arrives, but before the fight can even begin, it is already interrupted. Kenjaku stops Sukuna by saying that he must first keep his promise before he can fight Gojo, and Sukuna simply agrees. To me, this looks like a binding vow, simply because I see no other way someone like Sukuna, the king of all curses, could listen to Kenjaku. This is completely out of character, and with that, only something like a binding vow should be able to convince him so quickly. What that vow might be is still a mystery. If you have any idea, feel free to post them in the comments. If we just go by what is already confirmed, we know that Kenjaku, for example, made some sort of pact with Hajime Kashimo. Hajime agreed, but perhaps at the condition that Kenjaku would allow him or make it possible to fight Sukuna. This was not mentioned, but it would fit the idea of a binding vow. Otherwise, it could also have something to do with a souvenir we saw in the last chapter, which is most likely Sukuna's old body. Or maybe it has something to do with the culling game in general, maybe even something to do with the merging process or Tengen. Or it's part of the binding vow they both made before Sukuna split into 20 fingers. There is a whole range of possibilities. What's really strange about this whole scene is that Gojo also immediately agreed to it. And Kenjaku didn't seem like Gojo will disagree at all, almost as if Kenjaku knew Gojo would agree. But why did Gojo agree to this? If he knows he's stronger, why does he risk the existence of the whole world by giving them more time to prepare and become stronger? As I said before, either Gojo is no longer sane and is planning something worse than Kenjaku, or something else is happening that Gojo is not telling us at the moment. It would be interesting to know if Gojo would have also suggested by himself to postpone the fight, regardless of Kenjaku. That would immediately disprove the possibility that Kenjaku could somehow be working with Gojo. One simply has to admit that this synchronization between Kenjaku and Gojo is very strange and suspicious. Also, the fact that Gojo was the one who suggested the date of the fight and Kenjaku simply agreed seems very weird. The date is December 24, so a little over a month. There are only 2 possibilities for this. Either he wants to train his people for some reason, which would indicate that he thinks he's too weak on his own, which makes no sense in my opinion. Unless Gojo lied about his strength compared to Sukuna, or thinks he can't fight Sukuna and Kenjaku at the same time, or something like that. Or he's preparing something only for himself for whatever reason. Maybe even the date is very important in this case. We know that it's the same day that Geto originally died at the hands of Gojo, so again, very suspicious. I leave it at that for now because I'm going to publish 2 more videos on this topic starting next week, so subscribe to this channel if you don't want to miss these videos. So what do you think of this new Jujutsu Kaisen chapter? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.